I'm making this video as a byproduct of helping some of you guys with your assignments and a couple of the issues that two or three students had that actually forced me to go back and revisit my file. And I realized that what I thought was originally a problem specifically with a couple of students' projects was actually an overarching problem that I actually caused myself when I gave you the instructions on how to set up your shuffle nodes in the multi-channel EXR videos. I did make a very key mistake that an illogical one that I missed when I was building the files originally. And when I went back and had a look at my own file, I realized that I had given you some wrong information, and I wanted to make sure I corrected that. There's nothing very difficult to fix or complicated. And by the way, if you don't apply this fix to your assignment, I'm not going to be docking marks for this specific problem because, again, it was caused by me in the first place. And some of you may have done it already and not revisit this video. I don't know. But yeah, I would encourage you all to fix it and go through the process so you understand where what the difference is. But again, I won't be docking any marks for this if you don't correct the problem. I will take ownership of this mistake. So where the problem lies is in how I showed you guys the setup for the AOVs. There's one section of the video that I kind of emphasized that I actually, again, made a pretty big boo-boo that I need to correct with you guys. So that's what we're going to look at right now. So the issue is one of the students, or again, two or three students actually came to me in drop-in sessions and were asking about an issue they were having with their the outer edge of their objects having a dark line around it. And then when I went look at my own file, I realized, oh, mine has it as well. And if you zoom in, you can see there's a kind of a hairline, a darkening around the silhouette of my entire car. Now, if your car is composited in front of a darker background, you might not even notice. But if you've got a lighter background, this will obviously show up more. And also, if you have more of a blur, I don't have much of a blur on this right now, but if I add a blur, if I make it larger, you can see what happens in the blur. That dark line gets blurred out, and it even looks worse. So, yeah, there's an issue here. And first I missed it, but when I went back and looked again, it was pretty obvious what I'd done wrong. So I'm going to go through how to fix this. So the issue is being created as a byproduct of how I got you guys to set up your shuffle nodes. So if you recall from the first video in the multi-channel AOV selection that I added, what I asked you guys to do was when you brought in your AOVs, because I'm just going to clear this out to make sure we're looking at one at a time. Just going to double click on the diffuse direct first. Here it is. If you recall, by default, these would have been set to RGBA. And I said, because there's no alpha included with a AOV, which is normal, there's no need to plug in or to include this empty alpha channel, because it's not useful information. The alpha doesn't exist. So we want to use the alpha channel that does exist in the car only XR. If I plug that in for a second, you can see that does have an alpha channel, and that is the alpha channel we want to use. So by default, when you plug in the direct diffuse, this is the current RGB information for the direct diffuse only. By default, Shuffle has it set up like this, where it's RGB direct diffuse in RGB, and the output is going to be RGBA, and it gives you this. So here's the RGB data, and when I hit A to look at the alpha data, or if you can come to the alpha drop down here, same thing, it's blank, and that makes sense because there's nothing plugged into the RGB. So it's passing blank alpha data to the next level, which eventually we need the alpha. So what I got you guys to do was switch this, and just watch. I'm still looking at the alpha channel right now of just the direct diffuse. Watch what happens when I switch it to RGB. Boom, alpha instantly appears. So what I told you was correct. However, it's correct if you're only using one AOV. and we're not. We're using multiple, obviously. And it didn't occur to me, and I didn't think ahead how the merge nodes would affect having to merge multiple alpha channels together, because that's effectively what's going to happen is as you turn each of these to RGB mode. So I will look at the indirect diffuse. I'll double click on it. You can see it's also already set to RGB. If I hit 1, here it is. It has the same alpha channel. The RGB information is different, but the alpha is identical. And then if we look at the RGB information for the shuffle node, for the specular node, I should say, there it is. Again, different RGB, but because it's also set to RGB output, it's just passing through this alpha channel again. And there it is. So what's happening is I've got the exact same alpha channel being passed through to every merge node, which is actually not a good thing. If it was different RGB, or sorry, if it was different alpha channels, then that would be okay. Then what would happen is that would combine them into one mega alpha channel that has all the information. But if they're all identical, what is going to happen is, because they have overlapping pixels, when I zoom in, you'll see the difference here. So let's just look at these one at a time. So I'm going to plug in the direct diffuse. So here's its alpha channel, and just really look at the gradation here, where this kind of grayscale area is, where it fades from white to black. That's really important. This gradient, it looks pretty harsh because I'm zoomed in. Maya has rendered that perfectly so that it matches our object only render. If this gets modified or changed even a little bit, it's going to cause that black line. And so what happens is, when we merge the indirect diffuse on top of the direct diffuse, not only are we merging the RGB values, we're also merging the alpha values and adding them together. And what happens is, when you add this pixel to itself, it gets twice as bright. When you add this pixel to itself, it gets twice as bright. And just watch what happens when I plug it in. So here's the merge node. I'm going to hit 1 to plug it in. Just watch these pixels. It got twice as bright. And now the fade, the gradation, has been modified, and it's no longer compatible with our image. And it's going to create a hairline. But to make it even worse, we're merging it again. And the pixels are getting added to themselves a third time. So it's going to be 3 times as bright. So watch when I plug this one in. So this is merging the specular. RGB, yes, great, but also alpha. So now this one was gray, it's white now. So now I'm making, every time that gets added, that black line gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And if I had 15 AOVs, if I had a really complex mesh, and I had a dozen AOVs or whatever the case may be, even one more, every time you add a new AOV, that's going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. And so what you end up with is this black line here. It's really noticeable around the outer edge of your render, which is obviously no good. So how do we fix it? We're actually going to have to take a step back here, and we're going to actually put these back to the original method or original mode of just RGBA. So I'm just going to do them one at a time, but it's going to cause a new problem. You'll see in a second. But look at this. As soon as I do it, look, black line, no black line. But watch what happens when I do the last one. Uh-oh. It all goes see-through. So now we've got a new problem. By switching them all to RGBA, all 3 of them, none of them have an alpha channel. And the alpha channel that exists here is not getting pushed through at all. So what happens is, now if I look at this merge, after everything's merged together, this on its own looks great. It's got all 3 layers added together. The specular's there, the indirect, the direct. But when I look at the alpha, it's blank because it didn't get pushed through. So there's actually 2 ways to fix it. One, you can do it with the existing nodes, which is how I'm recommending you guys do it. I'm just going to move this up to make more room here. But the second method is a little bit more organized, maybe, even though it requires an extra node. I'm going to show you both. and let you guys make your own decisions as to what method works best for your train of thought. But ultimately, we already know that if we set these to RGB instead of RGBA, the alpha channel gets sent through. We also already know if we send the alpha channel through more than once, so once, twice, 3 times, each time you merge 2 of them together, it gets worse and worse and worse and adds the black line. So, to solve the problem with the existing nodes, all we have to do is leave all of our shuffles set to the default RGBA, and then whichever shuffle is merged last, so in my case, the specular, that one gets changed to RGB. And what happens is the alpha channel gets added to the last merge node only once, and it doesn't have that multiplication effect. So no alpha, no alpha, alpha. So whatever your last AOV is, then that is the one that would get the RGB value to send through the alpha channel. So as long as you don't send it through in all your shuffles, and you just send it in the last, you're good. So some of you guys may have 4 shuffle nodes because you've got a transmission for opacity. If that was the case, you would have 3 shuffle nodes set to RGBA, and then again 1 set to RGB. And in all honesty, it doesn't even matter which one it is. You could pick any one because they're all using plus as merge methods. It will work either way as long as one of your shuffles has it. But the mistake I made was asking you to do it in all of your shuffle nodes, and that isn't sound. And you can see why. Now, the second method to fix it might be a little bit easier for some because a lot of people have trouble kind of reconciling with the fact that, oh, he said only one of the shuffles gets the RGB. Which one? I don't know. And so even though it's it doesn't matter. Some people just kind of struggle with that. So another thing you can do is create an extra shuffle, and that shuffle's entire job is to carry the alpha channel only. So that's the way I'll do. I'll just make a modification to add that to the equation. So in order for that to work, I'm gonna have to set all my AOVs to RGBA. So this is where people like this method. All your RGBA values, or all your shuffle nodes for your AOVs are all going to be treated the same. So they're all going to have RGBA as your output. And then there's no confusion. Now on their own, that's going to create a ghosted car. But however many you have for the shuffles, you just stack them up for each of your AOVs, merge them correctly with plus merges, and then just add 1 at the end to cover the alpha channel. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Now, in order to do this, though, I'm going to need to just break. Right now, this is the last node of my car merging right here. This is where all these come together, and then they're getting piped out into the main comp. I'm going to unplug that for a second and just move this over. And I'm going to select my car group and move those over to the side here. These extra nodes I'm going to get rid of, too. Oops. Should have. Just making more room, ultimately. So with this method, I'm going to need to add 1 more layer to my car comp to get it. So right now, you can see there's no alpha channel in my final merge node for the car. There's only RGB data, as you can see. So I'm going to add 1 more shuffle. You can copy and paste one of the existing ones or create a fresh one. Doesn't really matter. I'll stack this on top here. I'm going to call it alpha shuffle. And I'm going to plug that in to our original EXR and plug it into the viewer. So by default, it's just piping through the beauty channel as is, which we'll always do by default. So all I'm going to do for this one, oh, it didn't take my name. I must have undid it by accident. Alpha shuffle. There we go. I'm going to double click on it, and for the input, I only want alpha. I've already got the RGB combined with these three and these two merge nodes. That already has all the RGB data I need. So I don't need to add RGB again. However, I do not have any alpha information right now. So this is where this is going to come into play. If I just go ahead and switch this to alpha, you can see what's happening is it's doing the opposite of the other three. It's outputting alpha only into the alpha channel, and it's not including any RGB data, which means it's going to pass through the RGB data that already exists here, which is pretty much exactly what I want. So now to combine this with the rest of it, I need one more merge node. Again, I'm just going to move this over to make some room. So I'm going to hit M to merge. And just like all the others, merge is always, B always gets plugged into the last merge node, which is this one here. That was my specular merge. And A gets plugged into your new shuffle node. Now I don't like these diagonals when I'm overlapping these, so I'm going to hold down Control and click on the yellow diamond to drag out in a null, which allows me to kind of give you these prettier node graphs. You don't have to; it'll still function. I just like the way it looks. The other thing I'm going to do here, I don't need the postage stamp on this one anymore because it's no longer my end result. It's just part of the equation. So I'm going to switch the postage stamp off for the specular merge, and then the alpha merge, which I've forgotten to label. Or in all honesty, instead of calling this alpha merge, I'm going to call this car final. So I know that this is my final merge node for the car. Now I'll give this one a postage stamp so I can tell that it's the one that I want. Oh, and see how it's all black? That's actually obviously wrong. That's because, I'm going to zoom in here, I told you already when you're merging AOVs, you need to set them to plus. Plus, I forgot. The new one is still set to over, which is the default, so I got to double click on it. Switch its operation to plus like all the others, and now the car looks like it should. And then if I hit A to go to alpha, it has an alpha channel. And again, it's not an alpha channel times 3. It's a single alpha that's been passed through all by itself. Now it's ready to get plugged into the rest of the comp. So it's just, I've just added one extra operation, and I'm going to plug it right in where the other one used to be. Don't worry about this error, by the way. Grain does that. Until I plug something new into the viewer after it's reconnected, it'll still say error, but as soon as I plug the final comp in, it should fix itself. And you can see the error went away. And now here's my new end result with no black line. It blends so nicely with the background now that I can't believe I missed it in the first place. And now just the ultimate test, if I crank that blur value up again, you can see there's no issues whatsoever. This now sinks into the background as it should have in the first place. So that is a little tutorial on how to fix a problem that I created. So bonus, like I said, if you don't solve the problem in your file, I will not dock marks for it. I'm not going to penalize you for something that I caused, but I do encourage you all to go through the steps of fixing it, just so you understand what's going on here, and if you have any questions while doing it, you can ask them. But obviously, it was actually easy fix, so don't get intimidated by it. You don't have to start over again. You should be able to take your existing file, go back into it, and adjust it like I did.